By now, I think you know the old story. Whenever you're in the market to add a new piece of hiking equipment to your loadout, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. And if it's cheap, you know that they have to be cutting corners somewhere. That's why these 10 items here stand out. They can each be had for less than $50 and they'll seriously upgrade your hiking experience. I'm sure that there's something in this list that you haven't heard of before and can add to your loadout. Now, if you've got a keen eye, you may be wondering why there's 9 things on the table, and that'll make sense a little bit later on. I've chosen all of these items myself, and ever since introducing them to my loadout, they've stayed in my pack on pretty much every single adventure that I've been on. Now, this video isn't sponsored by anyone, but I have included affiliate links to some of these items that if you choose to purchase one of the items through those links, I'll make a small percentage of the sale. Just to sweeten the deal, I've thrown in some extra recommendations from the hikers of my Instagram community for further inspiration. But let's cut to the chase and get stuck into it. This list isn't in any particular order, but if I did have to order it, I think I'd put this item somewhere towards the top. A buff should be in every hiker's pack for every adventure. It's probably the most versatile piece of clothing that I own. When it's cold, I like to use it as a face mask, and when it's hot, I like to cover it over my head to protect me from the sun. You can also use it like a cloth to wipe things down, and as an extra step in water filtration to stop bits of dirt from clogging up your filter. I first caught on to using buffs when I went over to Nepal, as I wanted a good face cover to stop me from breathing in the really cold air over there. Before using buffs, I'd use balaclavas a little bit in the winter time, but I found that they never really stayed onto my face. So trying this one out when I was over in Nepal, it ended up being on my body pretty much every single day, and now coming back and hiking in Australia, in the winter time, obviously used it as a face cover as I would when I was over in the Himalayas, and in the summertime I've been using it to protect me from the sun. And another really common use I had for it is putting it around my forehead to stop the sweat from getting into my eyes. It does that one really well too. And look, you can pick one of these things up for like $30, and for that price I can't see why you wouldn't. If you want a cheap and effective cooking system, I don't think you can beat the canister stove setup. I've got a double whammy here. I've got a cheap pot, and we've got the king of ultralight canister stoves, the BRS 3000. This tiny stove costs just $27, and it weighs only 25 grams, which I think is pretty impressive. And I haven't had this for long, and so I can't really comment on its longevity, but really at $27, even if it lasts me a year, I think it's pretty worth it. Now, you know, the usual combination for the BRS is pairing it with a Toaks titanium pot, but checking on Amazon here in Australia, that pot's gone over $50, so it's broken our budget. So instead of that, we've gone for probably the pot you've seen in every single hiking store around, or even if you just searched on Google, you'd probably see something that looks identical to this one. Just because you see these guys everywhere doesn't mean that they're cheap and nasty. In fact, I've had this one for over a year, and I can't say that it's let me down. It's a pot, it does its job, it holds water, it boils water, it's not too heavy. And even if it does fail you, you can find these things, and they're probably all made out of the same factory. You can buy one on eBay for like $10. So in reality, you could probably buy one of these pot sets and a BRS stove for under $50. And this being the case, I don't think that you can go wrong with these two as your first cooking system. This is an air pump for your inflatable sleeping pad, and it also doubles as a camp light. Now, before you say that it's probably not worth carrying, just think about how much you enjoy blowing up your inflatable sleeping pad with your breath after a long day of hiking. It's not much, is it? Just throw this sucker in your pack and it'll inflate your sleeping pad in under a minute. And it weighs just 100 grams, and I don't think the penalty of carrying that outweighs the pain that it saves me from. You can buy one of these for around $35, and they are newer models, but they're over our budget of $50. But from what I understand, the newer models just are a little bit more efficient and maybe weigh just slightly less, but really this guy's not that heavy at all, so think about adding one of these guys to your loadout. Now, sticking with the theme of electronics, we've got this multi-adapter cable here from Anker, about $20. It's got a Lightning, USB-A and a USB-C, and it saves you from pulling out an absolute snake pit from your pack at the end of the day to charge your items. I'm a fan of anything that can save me some hassle, weighs almost nothing and costs almost nothing. It's saving you the pain from untangling all your cables at the end of the day, and it's saving you the weight of carrying multiple cables if you want to count the grams. Next up, we've got this guy here. I'm sure that majority of you have a head torch, but in case some of you don't or are looking for a different model, this one here is a really good budget option. And really, like most things from Decathlon, they're very well priced and they don't seem to fall apart easily. This one here is the second head torch that I picked up. I initially started with a really budget battery powered one that didn't work anywhere near as well as this guy. I picked up this one for $40 or something. It's a simple rechargeable head torch, so you can't use batteries in it, and it's got all the different modes and different lights and dimmers, etc. that you'd expect from a head torch. And the only reason I swapped it out for the current one I'm using is because of that problem where I can't alternate between using rechargeable or using batteries. So if I'm on the move in the mountains and my head torch dies, then there's not much I can do with a rechargeable model. But if I have the option to use batteries, swap them in, keep moving. And that's really the only reason why I changed out head torches. I'm still using this guy, but I'm using him at work instead. Next, we've got Leuco tape, or rock tape, or sports tape, or whatever other name you want to think of giving this sort of tape. You can obviously use it for its intended purpose, which is to tape up injured muscles and stop them from moving. But I found that my number one use for Leuco tape is stopping blisters and rubbing problems on my feet. If you apply the tape correctly, it stays attached for a really long time, much longer than any other tape that I've used. Of course, it's not waterproof, so if you end up walking through a river or something, you're going to have to apply it again, but I think you can expect that of every single kind of tape. Just to sort of give you an idea of how effective this tape is, when I went over to Nepal to climb Island Peak, I ended up hiring my mountaineering boots, and you can imagine that that wouldn't have been too comfortable in some old busted up boots that I've never been in before. But the night before, I just wrapped my foot up in this tape here, and I can say that I didn't have any rubbing problems at all, and I ended up coming off of a 16-hour mission with 0 blisters. So if that's not impressive, then I'm not sure what is. Now, with the theme of budget options that work really well, you might be questioning my decision to put an almost $50 pair of socks on this list. Now, hold on. I know that sounds insane, nearly $50 for a pair of socks. And I did think that as well, but I can tell you, as soon as I put these guys on my feet, I immediately knew that my money was well spent. You've got to look after your feet when hiking. You're abusing them non-stop when on the trail, and they've got to hold together to keep you moving. The best way to look after your feet is 1, have good hiking shoes, and the second best way to look after your feet is have good hiking socks. I'd also like to mention sock liners in combination with these guys. I don't have them here, but you can also buy a pair or multiple pairs of sock liners for less than $50. But the combination of using sock liners and high quality merino hiking socks has pretty much eliminated all of the rubbing issues and all of the blister issues that I used to have when hiking. And really, when I was having these problems, I would have paid a lot more than $50 to have them solved. So while it may seem silly to put $50 towards hiking socks, it's probably some of the best money that I've ever spent on hiking gear. Certainly one of the biggest changes to have occurred in hiking culture over recent years is the rise of digital navigation. Only on the toughest hikes in the most remote locations will I ever carry a map and compass. And really, it's just as a failsafe. Even the GPS out there in these wilderness areas in the Australian high country seems to work. And even then, for every other situation, I've just used my phone, and I can't say that I've had any issues. And you may be wondering where exactly my phone with this sort of navigation app is. I'm looking at it right now. I'm using it to record, so I can't exactly show you anything right here, but our good friend B-Roll will certainly fix you up on that. The app I use is the Venza Maps. It's free to download, and there's plenty of free maps that you can install and use. There are paid maps and subscriptions available, but even for what I do, I've never found these to be necessary. With pretty much all of the modern style backcountry navigation apps, I find that they miss a lot of the features. Like, they miss the names of roads, miss roads entirely, miss the names of smaller tracks or even those smaller tracks entirely. Names of smaller peaks are absent. So there's a lot of data that are missing. And with the free maps on Avenza, I find that they include pretty much everything there that you would expect to find on a paper topographical map. And this one's completely free, so you can try it, see if you like it, and if you don't like it, you can just delete it and it goes off into the void. Out of my own habits and bad decisions, I can usually find myself pretty dehydrated on hikes, which can escalate into very bad situations. Just take my word on it. The best way to stop yourself from getting dehydrated, and really just to keep yourself feeling good on the trail, is to use electrolytes. They're cheap, effective, and they should always remain in your hiking med kit. As your diet on the trail can leave you pretty deficient in electrolytes, there really isn't a better way to keep your electrolytes up without supplementing them. Now, what I do to really feel the electrolytes work is I make sure to pre-hydrate before I hike and then rehydrate afterwards. So I have an electrolyte drink the night before, and in the morning I fill up all my water that I'm going to be drinking throughout the day with electrolytes as well. Keeps me feeling refreshed and pushing for longer distances. These are just 10 items that I personally own and have used over the years, but to fill out the list, I've asked my Instagram community of hikers to tell me what the most important item in their loadout was that cost them less than $50. So we've got Farhand Dharma. God, this isn't going to go well. It's going to have me pronouncing things wrong. But anyway, this bloke says a good pillow. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I sleep strangely, and I don't personally like backpacking pillows from what I've used, so I might have to go on the hunt and try and find one that's good. But I know there's a couple of them that are less than $50. I know that you've got the Trekology one that you can buy on Amazon. That one's like less than $30. And you've got a Cedar Summit one that's around $45 or something like that. So if you're a fan of pillows, or maybe you want to test them out, although personally I feel like you're sleeping on a balloon, then they're less than $50 and you might end up liking it. Now we've got Brian here. He says a GSI compact scraper, and that's just to clean one of these bad boys up. And I can tell you that cleaning pots is my least favorite thing to do while hiking, and I've devised a system to never have to clean my pot again, and that's by not cooking in my pot. I only boil water in it. But if you want to cook in the pot, I reckon a scraper is a pretty good choice. Now we've got Matt here, who has enlightened me on the usefulness of Japanese fishing gloves. The Showa Res gloves, which I was speaking to him, they're the Showa 28002s, so the black ones that have the gauntlet that goes down. I think you can buy them for around $50. But anyway, he's gone on to say that he's done a lot of alpine climbing over in New Zealand and has tried out a lot of different gloves, and he says that the Japanese fishing gloves that are pretty unassuming were the best climbing gloves that he's ever used. So look, for less than $50, why not try them out? Now the final suggestion here we have is for a Dyneema food bag, and it's probably something that I'm going to end up picking up, and I know you can grab them for less than $50, but it's one of those items where, like, you know, you don't really need to buy one. You can just use any old sort of bag. I mean, you can just use something like this. It's going to do the job. But Dyneema is a really, really good fabric. It's super, super lightweight, super strong. It's like pretty much completely waterproof. And to buy a food bag for less than $50, and you know it's going to keep all your food good and safe and dry, etc., etc. I mean, why not pick one up if you've got the funds? I don't know about you, but trying out inexpensive but useful items is one of my favorite things about hiking. It's just satisfying to find something of quality that didn't cost you a fortune to get your hands on. So I hope that at least one of the suggestions in this video has inspired you to add something new to your loadout. If you're just getting started with hiking, you should check out my guide to buying some of the bigger items of your loadout here. That way you'll be set to hit the trails. If you found this video useful, I'd appreciate it if you left a like. And if you'd like to see more hiking content like this, it would be a huge help if you subscribe to the channel. Cheers guys, enjoy the suggestions, and I'll catch you on the next one.